There's a growing problem in certain communities in western Massachusetts with crumbling foundations. It was caused by a substance mixed with concrete, which came from a now closed Connecticut quarry. The problem has made headlines in northern Connecticut as potentially thousands of Connecticut homeowners are affected, and the cost to repair is in the hundreds of thousands. Carolee McGrath sat down with Connecticut attorney Brian Danforth and his client Maggie, whose home has this problem.
So we moved into our home almost 27 years ago. It was a brand new home when we moved in. About 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, we noticed some fine cracking in the foundation. Thought it was just a settling issue, something going on with normal foundation types of cracks here and there. But as the summer progressed, we noticed that the cracks were getting more pronounced. We started to notice one crack in particular where we could actually see daylight starting to come through the foundation. And we weren't really sure, what was happening. And our neighbor had the same issue. So, we thought, oh, well, it's, just some normal stuff happening. And that's when we heard a news story that there were other homes like us across eastern Connecticut. And doing some research, we found out that our foundation was poured by a company, J.J. Modis, that had some issues with containing pyrrhotite within the aggregate that causes the foundation to crumble, the concrete to fail, to crumble, and to cause a this issue that we're having with our concrete.
And so what did you do?
I think we first recognized that we had a problem. Then we did some research around what was available to us, and our neighbor actually had found doctor. I'm calling you Dr. Danforth now. I've just promoted you to a
well
doctor,
be, right?
pyrrhotite doctor. We actually connected with an attorney's office to figure out what our options were. We looked through our homeowners policy to see if this was something that we could file as a claim. But there were a few of us saying, I don't know, let's see what we can do from this perspective to review what our options are.
So let's just talk about the insurance side of it, because as a homeowner, you would think, oh, okay, I'm just going to call up my insurance company and they're going to come out and they're going to look at this and it's going to be taken care of. Not the case.
That is not the case at all. No, the insurance companies regularly deny. In fact, I have about 300 cases, and every single one of them has a denial in them for this very issue.
And so what do you do as far as litigation? Like, how are you able to fight this, or how are you trying to fight this, I should say?
The only thing my clients can do at this point, really their only option, and that includes governmental or state or town, is simply to file a lawsuit and to try to get the insurance companies to cover it. And the key provision within these policies is known as collapse, and how it's defined. In the state of Connecticut, if it's not defined, you have the ability to go to court. If it is defined, and how it is defined is something called an abrupt collapse, meaning it has to fall down all at once. Courts have said that the crumbling in the concrete does not meet that definition and have thrown out those cases.
So unless your house collapses, you're out of luck as far as the insurance company goes.
Your house has to fall down in order for the insurance company to step in. Correct.
Which is unbelievable to me. And so what are we talking for price on fixing this?
We had an estimate to do the complete repair of our foundation, and it was over $218,000.
I mean, how do you even wrap your head around that? I mean, and then you have to have the bank come in, right? If you're going to get a loan, they're going to have to do an appraisal.
So our house, it has no value. So we did have our home appraised from a town tax perspective, and right now we no longer pay taxes on the value of the home because it has no value. We pay taxes on the value of the land. So even to try to find a way to fund a repair, we have no collateral. So it's not like we can even use, take out a home equity loan because we have no equity in our home.
I mean, just to hear that is sickening. When you think that you've worked so hard, I know you have 4 children and you've put them through college and you have another one still to go.
Yep.
How are you even managing that financially, emotionally?
It's a huge challenge. To try to think about, we've just invested almost 27 years of mortgage into our home. we have no equity coming out of it. So to try to look at how do we move forward with our lives, it's been very, very difficult. In our situation, our home needs repair, general maintenance, normal things that you would do as your home ages, and that is no longer an option for us to even consider, some of those general repairs or general upkeep, because it just doesn't make sense. We can't. So for us to replace a window that we need to fix, we can't, because the window is no longer square. So if we replace a window and we get it fixed, then it's no longer, it has to be done again. So it's emotionally frustrating, it's draining, it's disheartening. You have a sense of hopelessness because you just don't know what to do next.
Now, Brian, I know that there's cases here in Western Massachusetts, and I think we're just beginning to understand this problem in this area, but how many cases in Connecticut, and what kind of a cost are we talking as far as this? I mean, it's a disaster, really. It's
an absolute disaster. I know that we have about 300 files in the building, because I work with another attorney on these. We know there's about, I think, 700 complaints filed with the Department of Consumer Protection. But if you talk to some governmental officials, they might think that amount might be as high as 35,000. I think just homes affected, and I don't think they're even looking at places such as public buildings. There are public buildings in Wellington, which rumor has it do have the problem. There are also commercial buildings that I know have the problem. I used to work at one, and I went over and looked at the concrete and said, this looks familiar, and I drove around the back, and sure enough, I could see it. There's also condominiums, and there's some high-end apartments near where I work that visibly have the problem. I mean, I can see it myself.
So I know the state of Connecticut has taken certain steps to help homeowners, but no one's giving you a check for $200,000. No. What do you think needs to be done?
What I think needs to be done is, I think it's a finite problem insofar as, the concrete, the concrete poured for this problem probably started around 1982, 1983, and I think the segment you did with Senator Lesser, I think you had a cutoff date of 2010. Actually, we found the problem in 2013, and they didn't stop pouring till 2016. So my belief is, and this is just my personal belief, is before you got to find a solution, you got to find out how big the problem is, and how the state of Connecticut and how apparently the state of Massachusetts are going about it is asking the homeowners to do testing and reporting. I just don't think that's very practical under the circumstances, because there's obviously more than 700 people in the state of Connecticut that have the problem. And most insurance companies and attorneys and banks, people that I talk to in general, say there just is no clear plan. And I don't think there can be a clear plan until you've identified the scope of what you think the problem is, or what it physically is. And I think that's something that can be done.
And do you think this is something that the federal government should get involved in? And I know that you're having a very important visit coming up. Tell us about that.
So I know that our state, our senators and our congressmen have been working on not just a local state level, but also on a federal level as well, to see what options there are from a federal government support perspective. We are lucky enough to have gained the attention of Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Dr. Ben Carson. So Dr. Carson will be visiting Wellington, our home, on Monday to review the damage firsthand, and additionally we'll be meeting with some homeowners after that, or after his visit with us, to really get to understand the impact, the full impact of this issue on the people who are living with it every single day.
Well, thank you so much for coming in to talk about this, and I'm so sorry for all you're dealing with, and best of luck to you as you kind of wade through all of these different cases and help homeowners try to figure this out.